We give you our best 3 bets for week 3 of college football, and we tell you how you can take home a piece of $500, and it all starts right now. What's up, Grandstand Bettors family? We are back with our weekly college football plays for week 3, so make sure you hit the subscribe button for all our free picks, predictions, and contests throughout the season. And while you're at it, smash that like button if you are ready for another fun-filled Saturday of college football. So without further ado, let's dive in to week 3, and let's start things off with number 6 Oklahoma versus Nebraska in the 12 p.m. Eastern time slot. Oklahoma, they're favored by 10.5 points in this one, and the over-under is set at 66. Now, Oklahoma has started the season 2-0, getting through a pretty easy schedule so far, defeating UTEP in the season opener 45-13 and Kent State 33-3 last week. They're averaging 461 yards per game this season, which is 44th in college football, and the main reason is their offense and their rushing attack. They're averaging almost 200 yards per game on the ground, which is coming half from senior running back Eric Gray. Although he does not actually have a touchdown to account for this season, but he has accounted for 173 of their team's 393 rushing yards, and he's averaging 6.7 yards per carry. Now, the other standout on the Sooners offense is certainly wide receiver Marvin Mims. He leads the team in receptions, yards, and touchdowns through their first 2 games of the season and is averaging 24 yards per catch. Now, defensively, the Sooners have looked very solid again this year. They have only conceded 1 touchdown on the season and the total of 16 points so far through 2 games. The X factor, though, for this defense is the front 7, which is holding opposing offenses to only 96 yards rushing per game. Linebacker Deshaun White leading that unit, and with some other solid playmakers across this defense, it's going to be tough for Nebraska, honestly, to move the ball down the field consistently against them. Now, the Cornhuskers, on the other hand, they've gotten off to a rough start here in this season. They absolutely blew their week 1 or 0 week against Northwestern. They were outscored 14-0 after the 9-minute mark in the third quarter. After picking up, though, their first win of the season in week 2, they suffered a bad home loss against Georgia Southern, which prompted the inevitable firing of head coach Scott Frost. Now, despite the rocky start to the season, not everything has looked bad for this team. Texas transfer Casey Thompson, he did struggle a little bit so far at quarterback, throwing 3 interceptions and only 4 touchdowns through his first 3 games, but he has made some nice plays for this team and opened up their run game quite a bit. Running back Anthony Grant has rushed for 428 yards and 5 touchdowns already, which has helped Nebraska average 36 points per game. The biggest issue with this team, though, is their defense. They have given up 492 yards and 31 points per game already this season. Now, in our Week 0 preview video, we noted how young and inexperienced the secondary was for this team. And listen, these teams have exposed that already. Now, although the Sooners quarterback Dylan Gabriel does not have lights out number, he is extremely efficient throwing the ball and has no interceptions on the season with a 70.6 completion percentage, which we think Nebraska is going to have a tough time defending in this one. When it comes down to it, Oklahoma is a much better team, and honestly, that's why they're ranked 6th in the nation. This is a team that is just building things up early in the season to make a solid push for that college football playoff later in the year. And considering how poorly Nebraska's defense has played so far this season, and the fact that the best offense that they have faced all year is going to be Oklahoma, we have a hard time seeing Nebraska keeping this game close, especially with a new head coach. And I know sometimes with a new head coach, the team goes out there and plays hard, but the Sooners, they should have a very easy time controlling the pace of this this game on both sides of the ball, and the only way Nebraska will be able to cover this spread is if they put up 30 points or more, which we don't see happening. So with our first best bet of week number 3, we're going to take the Oklahoma Sooners minus 10.5 points over Nebraska. Now, the second game we're looking at this Saturday is number 22 Penn State against Auburn in the 3:30 Eastern time slot. Nittany Lions favored by 3 in this one. Over-under is at 47.5 at the moment. And Penn State, they have started their season 2-0 behind fifth-year senior Sean Clifford. Even after losing wide receiver Dotson to the NFL, he has still utilized a lot of his wideouts, connecting actually with 16 different receivers through the first 2 weeks of the season. He also led the Nittany Lions in an epic fourth quarter drive, which ended with a 10-yard touchdown pass with 57 seconds left to beat Purdue 35-31 in week 1. With running back Nicholas Singleton, this team has a very balanced attack on offense, which put up 46 points last week against Ohio. Now, despite a rough start to the season against Purdue, Penn State's defense played much better last week and will hopefully carry that momentum into this matchup. On the defensive end, they're giving up 264 passing yards per game right now, but their run defense has really helped hold this unit together, only giving up a total of 161 rushing yards on the entire season. Their secondary still has a lot of talent that should progress as the season goes on. And with how little Auburn has thrown the ball this season, we think this is going to be a good step this week in the right direction. And they really only have to worry about one receiver on Auburn. Now, Auburn, speaking of them, they also have started the season 2-0, but against much easier opponents. In week 1, they defeated Mercer 42-16. And last week, they barely beat San Jose State 24-16. They were actually losing 10-7 at halftime in that one, and they turned the ball over twice in that game. This exposed a huge weakness on the Tigers team, and that's their passing game. Quarterback TJ Finley only has completed 22 passes this season for 279 yards. He only has 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions through the first 2 games of the season. Almost all their offense production has come from running back Tank Bigsby and backup quarterback Robbie Ashford, who rushes the ball. The bad news for them is the best part of the Nittany Lions defense, as we mentioned, is their run defense. If Auburn wants to have any chance in this game, they're going to need to throw the ball down the field. Now, even if they're not able to get solid production out of their offense, their defense should keep them in this one at least for a half or 3 quarters. Like the Nittany Lions, they are extremely good at defending the run, but have struggled to contain opposing quarterbacks, giving up 236 passing yards per game. So they should be able to slow down the Nittany Lions a bit on the ground, but shutting down Clifford and his new favorite target, Javarius Johnson, is going to be tough for them. Now, these two teams, they're very similar defensively, but their offense are almost the exact opposite. It could not be clear what is going to decide the outcome for this game. For the Nittany Lions, it's going to be Clifford versus the Auburn secondary. And for Auburn, they're going to need to figure out a way to either penetrate the Nittany Lions front 7 or figure out a way how to pass the ball. Between these two keys of the game, we see the Nittany Lions having the edge, especially with Clifford's experience and Auburn's situation at quarterback. As the great Notre Dame head coach Lou Holtz would say, if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a team. And with that, our second bet of week number 3 is going to be Penn State -3 over Auburn. Now, before we get to our third pick of week number 3, just a reminder that if you're looking for our full card of games, we actually have those available at grandstandbettors.com and on our Patreon page. If you want that full card, head on over there, and we look forward to you becoming part of our Grandstand Bettors family. But there is one more game here in week number 3 we're going to look at, and that is on the late night at 9 p.m. between Miami, Florida, who's ranked 13th, and number 24, Texas A&M. The Aggies are favored by 6.5 points in this one, and the over-under is set at 44.5. The Hurricanes, they've started this season off on the right note. Hurricanes defeated Bethune-Cookman 70-13 in their season opener, and they had no problem containing Southern Miss last week, defeating them 30-7. This offense, led by quarterback Tyler Van Dyke, who has thrown the ball for 454 yards on the season, 3 touchdowns, has a 73% completion rate. His favorite target is only 5'10". That's Xavier Restrepo. And listen, that guy has hauled in 11 receptions already for 172 yards through 2 games of the season. But the problem is Van Dyke, the next favorite target, only has 6 receptions, so he's definitely going to need to find a way to get other guys the ball in this matchup against Texas A&M's, because their secondary is ranked 6th in the nation, only giving up 112.5 passing yards per game. Now, the Hurricanes do have a couple running backs that can also help them move the ball down the field, and this is really where we think they need to attack the Aggies. A&M is giving up 144 rushing yards per game, while both of the Hurricanes' leading running backs are averaging over 6 yards per carry. They also have accounted for 7 of their offensive 12 touchdowns this season and will continue to be the centerpiece of the offense throughout the rest of the season. Now, defensively, the Hurricanes, though, they have had a pretty easy time so far this season given the opponents they've played. They've only given up 10 points per game, but they have given up 228 passing yards per game, which could be an area of concern for them. Texas A&M got handed their first loss of the season last week by Appalachian State, and who knows how they bounce back here against Miami. So let's talk about them for a moment. They ended that game with 4 punts, 2 fumbles, and a 47-yard missed field goal. Quarterback Haynes King ended up only with 97 passing yards all game, and their rushing attack was not much better, held to only 83 yards. That was a big step back after they put up huge numbers against Sam Houston, but it was Sam Houston. Now, even though with how little offensive production they got in that game against Appalachian State, it's crazy they only lost that game by 3 points. The only reason for this is the Aggies' defense. In particular, their secondary, which only gave up 225 passing yards total this season and only 17 points. Their front 7, though, has been not as great. They've only been able to get 4 sacks in their first 2 games, which, given the talent they played on the other side of the ball, is not great. It's going to be interesting to see how this defense fares against a very good Miami offense. Now, with the total at 44.5, which is really low to us, most likely because of how both of these teams emphasize defense, we think that the books are forgetting that both of these teams also have very good offenses. They're averaging at the moment 72.5 points per game combined. The strengths and weaknesses of these two teams also line up favorably with each other. While Texas A&M has a very good secondary, Miami is more than happy to run the ball all game long, while the Hurricanes have a very good front 7 and run defense. The Aggies like to throw the ball a lot and will attack a weaker Miami secondary that we haven't seen in previous years. Now, both of these teams' defensive numbers also a little skewed here because of the level of competition they've had in their first 2 games. So really, with our last bet here in week number 3, we're going to take Texas A&M and Miami to put up some points and go over 44.5. Now, before we sign off, we told you we're going to tell you how to take home a piece of $500 this college football season. It's very simple. Each week, our college football free pick video comes out at 6:45 on Friday nights Eastern Time. In the comment section of those videos, you put your 3 best bets for the week. Now, there are a few rules to follow, which can be found in that pinned comment below. You must read the rules. Now, the top 3 at the end of the season will take home a share of $500, and it is as easy as that. So go read the rules and start putting your bets in today. But that's it for us in week 3 here for Grandstand Bettors. As always, sit back, relax, enjoy another fun-filled Saturday of football, and we'll see you next week right back here for week number 4.